It's a brand new day here in the A-pop world.
Okay.
Oh.
We're still in New Orleans.
Hey guys.
I'm Adrina.
I'm Hannah.
Today we are talking about, or we were asked, what our living arrangements were like when we were au pairs. Some of us have been au pairs for multiple families, so we have had multiple living arrangements that we can talk about. This one might be a little long. I apologize, but no, we'll cover all the bases. It'll be great.
If you're an au pair in Paris, you can expect to live in a chambre de bonne, which we both lived in at some point.
Yes, we did.
And
a chambre de bonne is actually an old maid's quarters that they used back in the 17th and 1800s. It's on the very top floor of these traditional Houseman buildings, named after Houseman, the designer, the city planner of Paris, I guess. The top floors of all these buildings have they're kind of like dormitory quarters where au pairs, students, artists, other people will live. And so it is very much like a dorm in that the entire hall shares a bathroom and everyone has their own little quarter, but it's extremely small. Way back in the day, it used to be only enough to fit a twin bed, but since then they have renovated them a little bit.
Yeah.
Now you can fit a twin bed and, like, you know, a little shower in the corner and a table in there.
Yeah, and some families have bought like 2 upstairs in their building, so they'll knock them through and make it like a really nice arrangement, which I'd seen a few times and was super jealous.
And it's really nice because you are living independently, even though you're sharing the toilet and you don't have that much room upstairs. You have a separate entrance. In the building there's a main entrance door which opens up to the staircase for all the main apartments, but then there's usually a back, the fancy nice apartments where your family will be living. And then there's usually a back door that's through the courtyard. And it leads into this very smaller staircase which goes all the way up to the top floor, so you can access that totally independently. And while it is a ball ache because it's on the top floor and you have to climb a bajillion stairs, sometimes there's an elevator, sometimes not really. You're living independently, which is something super, super, super unique to the au pair experience in Paris in particular.
We had both asked our host families in advance for pictures of our chambre de bonnes, and we both became obsessed with them, I would say. I would look at mine all the time. And I thought it was so romantic, this idea of living on my own on the top floor in Paris. And I personally was disappointed when I arrived because although my view was of the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe, it was gorgeous, the room itself was cold or too hot, or it was just damp quite often. Wasn't the nicest of situations to be living in. But yours was... I
think the most surprising part of... I had the opposite experience where I was very pleased with where I was living. My host parents had renovated my room. It was pretty like up to snuff. I think the most surprising thing about living in a chambre de bonne is that your shower is in the room. Sometimes there's a little wall built so that it looks like a separate bathroom, but most of the time you literally have the shower in your room. So if you have a guest over, you gotta warn them that you're gonna be naked in front of them while you walk into the shower, which is, you know, we got quite close, so it's fine.
Let's get tight very fast.
Yeah, because the shower's there, the sink and like the little stovetop is next to it, at least it was in my room. You could basically have your foot on your bed, in your shower, and your hands on your stove and in your sink at the same time.
Yeah, cooking while showering and relaxing.
And I was lucky. I had a big chambre de bonne. Like usually, I don't know measurements, but like 3 meters squared is like the smallest or medium average size. Mine had enough room for a twin bed, a huge armoire, desk, a sink, a big shower in the middle of the room, and enough. And then I had like a queen size mattress blown up in there at one point to house 2 other friends of mine who were homeless au pairs at the time. So it was pretty big. Yours was not as big, and I've actually seen smaller than yours was. I've seen our friends who only had room for really like a little bit of a walkway and her twin bed, and she didn't have a shower in her, so she would have to go downstairs into her family's apartment and shower whenever she needed. Which in a way is kind of nice because you see your family more and you're like kind of more integrated into their life and less independent and separate. That has its pros.
Ultimately though, chambre de bonnes are great because even if you're living in kind of not a nice one, like mine wasn't particularly the best, It does mean that you have your independence, like you say. You end up spending more time outside of your chambre de bonne, like going to explore the city if you hate being inside. That's what the previous au pair said to me. She was like, I don't really like my room, but I have seen a lot of the city itself, so I just embraced that myself too.
That's what a chambre de bonne is. But as for our second host families, we both lived with them in their house. So it was very different in that we had our rooms, our bedrooms. There was a door, and then once you open up the door, you're in their house. There might be your parents' bedroom my parents' bedroom was like pretty much down the hall, and my host kid's bedroom was literally across the hall from me. So there wasn't much separation, which is why having the door closed and door open, that signified a huge boundary for me, and it was important for me for my family to respect that boundary.
When I first moved in with my host family, I was amazed by the room. I was so happy. I was feeling like living with the host family would be a step down from having my own independence, whereas I actually found the opposite, really, because they were very respectful of my time off, and they often went in the house themselves, so I spent a lot of time in this gorgeous apartment rather than in my chambre de bonne, which I loved by the end of the year, but it wasn't my home. Whereas when I was living with the host family, the room that I had was gorgeous. It had a huge TV, it had all the perks of living with a rich family, it had a gorgeous cupboard, it had so much space, it was a double bed. I was so happy. But my kids' room was right next to mine, so on a Saturday morning there wasn't much chance of sleeping in, unlike in a chambre de bonne. That also has its perks because I ended up having brunch with my host family and getting to know them really well, which wasn't an option for me with my family in the chambre de bonne.
Especially if you're truly being an au pair to learn the language, spending time, as much time as you can around your host family is the way to do it.
You can even pick it up by osmosis sometimes because you hear something so often. Certain words, I would be amazed by the fact that because I'd heard someone scream it on a Saturday morning, it would just be in my head all of a sudden. I think that's the best way to learn the language, but you've got to weigh up whether you want full independence or a complete immersive experience.
I think during my first au pair experience, since I was coming almost right out of high school, I really valued being able to sleep in, and so living with the family was just really rough for me, whereas afterwards, when I was in au pair again, I was a little bit older, so being woken up was not the worst, and I actually really enjoyed my family. So depends on your relationship with your family a lot of the time as well.
With chambre de bonnes as well, I find you can bring friends over and have a rescue centre for abandoned au pairs.
True, I wouldn't be able to have my friends over if I didn't live independently from my family.
So when I lived with my host family, they were very cool about me having friends over whenever I wanted. Obviously, I would have to be respectful of the amount of friends or the hours they came over and all those kind of things. But definitely having your own place, you don't even need to ask or mention it, and it can occasionally be a bit awkward, like having to ask for friends to stay over for a week, or if you're having visitors from home, that can be a bit more tricky, but that's a question I suggest asking before you even move in.
True. That's all for now. If you have any other questions, of course, like usual, put it down in the comments below. We would love to answer them.
Please subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Au Pair in Paris. That's all for now.
Ciao!